to episode 6. We have our piece here, our billet we did. We did slice off the end off camera so that we could see our pattern and figure out what orientation to put this in. We're also testing our new bandsaw blade. Took some adjusting, but we got it to work. Now, what we need to do to cut a vertical slice off of this in this orientation, because this is the orientation that we shoved our piece of metal down through to create our quill, right? We have to weld on this block here to our billet. And we're not going to do a really strong weld. We're just going to tack it in place here. And then we'll start slicing off our piece. Now we're going to slice off one slice off of here, clean it up, etch it, and then we're going to do a side-by-side comparison of the first one to see what the differences are in them, if there is any difference in them. I think there's going to be a great difference in them, but that remains to be seen. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go get the welder all set up, and then we're going to tack these in place, and then we'll see you over at the bandsaw. It started snowing today. So we got snow. Finally. Whoop. Okay, now we got that welded in there. We're gonna take and put it in the bandsaw. We're gonna start slicing. Okay. We did have to make some slight modifications to the saw in order to get the proper balance. We'll go into that at a later time. But now we're just gonna set up our piece here to be cut. We don't want to cut off a super huge chunk. We're going to cut off just a nice little chunk here. And here we go. Now this is a carbide tipped large tooth. It's like 2 tooths per inch, something like that. It took some doing to get the machine set up to where it would actually cut. And I am going to put this insulation down here so that when it falls off, it doesn't hit the ground. Because I mean, we do have some cracks on the outer parts of it. I just don't want it to break apart. We want like kind of a full piece here to play around with and look at. We're about halfway through the billet here, and really good cut. The billet wasn't exactly square, so it's going to be a little thicker on the bottom end, but that's okay. The biggest thing keeps going through my mind right now, did I get the orientation right? Yes, I did check it, but you know, until it's ready to go, let's just keep on going through my mind. Is the orientation right? Is the orientation right? If it's not, well, no big deal, you know. We'll end up using this as a different billet for something else. It didn't meet the standards for the challenge, so it's just a useful billet of steel for other projects at this point, anyways. such a nice cut too. All right, we're gonna go get this cleaned up, and then we'll see you back here at the anvil here, and we'll compare the two of them. So I want to do the same thing we did last time, but it's a little bit hard to see these. So what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna put them up as pictures so you guys can see them, and we're gonna talk about them. So we're in relation to the video, so you guys get an idea of what you're looking at. We're going to be looking at this, we're going to be talking about the first billet first, and what we did on it, just in case you guys didn't catch the last video that we did on that. So we used a 1 teaspoon on the first billet, and we had a fixed barrier in the can that we then pulled out at the very end, and we just layered up each side, so each side got a little bit different. You can a little bit moundy. You can see the mounds in there on either side of it, because we filled up both sides of the can separately. And this one was also a complete failure. It on the first one, right? We had to do forge welding outside the can, and that's a big no for the challenge. So and it was a 3x3x6, the can was. Now, what do we do different on the second billet right here? Well, we used a half a teaspoon to fill up the can, and we didn't put a barrier down in between there. So we had, as you guys know, we just layered in our pieces, then we drove down a piece in there. And this was a 3x3x5 can. Technically, I could say, even though I did say at the end of the last video that this was a failure, technically it's not, because we haven't done anything else to it once it came out of the can. We never forge welded it after that. So we put it on there and cut, and based on what I see, I could right now cut another slice of this and make the dagger required for the challenge. So if we look at the one from the first one, the bands are really big, and they're super big, super wide, which I don't mind. Truthfully, I really don't mind that. But what really freaking makes me say that this one is more, it looks more like a pine cone that's been cut in half. The first one looks more like a pine cone. So realistically, we could say this is pine cone Damascus. If you take a pine cone, you cut it in half, this is what it looks like. Go look at pine cone, stabilized pine cone scales. That's exactly what this looks like. Looks like a pine cone. All right. The second one that we just finished, I would say, looking at it, it really looks like Feather Damascus. Super fine, super wispy. We get that push down, right, that we were looking for. It's not just an amalgamation of the fill that came in. It was pushed down. You can see it all the way through, right? So technically, I could say, you know what? I'm not going to go on any further with this. I'm going to move on to building a dagger out of this. The problem I have with that is there were some instances where I was like, yeah, the can came apart. It was still good. But can we do it without ever having a failure in the can? Can we do it without having any or none to speak of surface cracks where the material didn't weld together? Can we do that? I like to think we can. And another thing is that if I stop right now, there are people out there that don't have a press, that don't have a power hammer. I don't have a power hammer, but I've got a press. They don't have this stuff. So what I want to do, and not on this next one is just going to be about repeating the process of the one we just got done and refining that whole process. Because, I mean, it really looks like Feather Damascus, like completely. It is insane how good it looks. First one looks like a pine cone. Looks like a pine cone that's been cut in half. Exactly what it looks like. And this second one really looks like the Feather Damascus. And what I want to do is I want to get it to where it's absolutely repeatable, for one, absolutely matches what we're looking for. So I can come out here and go, bam, this is what this is going to look like. And maybe try some things a little bit. So, because if you see on here, I want to try and get some move, a little more movement in our layers. But the first thing I want to do is I want to repeat this process without a failed can. So what we did is we went out and bought actual freaking 3" by 3" by 3/16 tubing and 3/16 plate for our caps. And we're going to do it again. The exact same thing that we did this time. We're going to do it again with a prefabricated can and see what happens. Now, I am thinking in this, we're going to get much better adhesion, fusion with the steel. It is going to be a lot hotter inside that can, so we're going to get almost a crucible effect again. Because we're going to repeat this exactly. We're going to leave it in the forge for 45 minutes to an hour while it heats up at forge welding temperature. We're going to go squeeze it. We're going to go press it down. We're going to do a vertical press while it's in the can. We've been doing these vertical press while they're out of the can, but we're going to do them while they're in the can. Technically, yeah, it was still in the can on this last video, but not really. The can was completely falling apart. Only thing holding them together was that one cap on the got connected to the billet itself, and that's really what was only holding it in there. If the lid would have came off and ballooned out, it would have fell right out. But yeah, we want to be able to repeat this, and for right now, we just want to get this there. And then speaking about how most people don't have a power hammer or press, I want to see if we can do this by hand. Now, I'm not talking about strictly using a hand hammer to do this. What I am talking about is building a bottom and top die set that goes on an anvil so that you can do the squaring, use squaring dies that you then strike with a hand hammer to get your forge welds at an anvil. Because like one of our comments that we had was that I wish I could do this, but I don't have a press or a power hammer. And I'm like, well, we're going to figure out how to do this so that you don't need one. And you just have to build the top and bottom dies to go with it. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to call it good. Well, all I can say is stay safe out there. Be well. And as always, forge on.